So let's talk with Clay Henry about that, the publisher from Hogs Illustrated. Of course, you can read him at WholeHogSports. Hope you got the subscription to Hogs Illustrated. Clay, what's up in your life today, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. This is the daily double. I did Tommy and Ty this morning, and I've got you and Big Matt this afternoon. I guess this is still morning. I'm sorry.
Hopefully, that's right. We're still learning how to do a bit of a morning/afternoon radio show instead of 2 hours of lunch.
Yeah.
So this air raid, you're facing a much different style offense than you'll face at any other point this year. And from what I gather, this offense isn't about throwing it deep down the field. It's about crossing routes. It's about confusing the defense. It's about yards after catch. So, and I don't know if you can stop this offense, but how do you think you slow it down in some of the players that have to come up big?
Well, the way to do it is to get a zero play. And to get a zero play, the easiest way is to get an incomplete pass. I mean, there's, what did Darryl say? There's three things that can happen when you pass, and two of them are bad. You got to get one of those bads more often than not. In other words, you get an interception a couple of times in the game, find out the other team's quarterback can tackle a defensive player running for the goal line. That's the biggest play against the air raid is the pick six, and they give up some pick six in this system because they're going to throw it down the field. And you say, well, they don't throw it down the field a lot. That's what they practice. They run. In fact, I've already written this for my weekend piece that the keys to victory. Their practice on Thursday consists of 4 guys running go routes for the entire practice, and they are so good at that. They make you stop that first, and you hear about they run the ball and you take that away. Well, then they throw it. Well, no, these guys, they're going to run the go route until you take that away, and then everything else. They can dump it down and get the safe stuff. But they're so good throwing and catching the deep ball that you better be practicing against that. And then 10 times against LSU, they behind the line of scrimmage. Well, that's Kylin Hill. Mm-hmm. And the key matchup in this game is Grant Morgan and Bumper Poole trying to tackle that beast. And he is a beast, and it's a mismatch, and it is exactly what he wants to get to. I'm talking about Leach. You stop all this other stuff, then we're going to give it to our best player, and he's going to be one-on-one. You can't overload the run. You can't bring guys down in the box because we will throw it over the top. You can't bring extra guys in blitz because we will have the middle of the field in crossing routes. If you bring extra guys in the box, then you got man-to-man on all the wide receivers, and they'll run a crossing route in the middle, and that's what they did against LSU. And it looks, like it is such the thing that you want to do. You overload the line and blitz, and they run a crossing route, and they hit it, and it's the easiest pass. The pass over the middle is the shortest pass there is for the most yards. So that's kind of summarizing all of it. Maybe I gave you a little bit longer answer for your question.
No, I mean what you're telling me is that they've got an answer for anything that the defensive coordinator throws at you.
Yeah, so what you have to do is that you have to have guys that can win one-on-one matchups in the defensive line to get to the quarterback. It solves everything. And that sounds simplistic, but that's what Arkansas has to do, and they have to keep guys fresh so they're not tired in the fourth quarter when you have no pass rush. But I think one of the keys is Julius Coates, who's going back to Mississippi where he was a junior college star, and Mateo Soli, who didn't play last week because of COVID, has the speed on the edge, is an improved player, and is Dorian Gerald able to go with a bad ankle? He's got one wheel up down from, he went down in the second quarter with an ankle sprain. And how those things are, sometimes they're really easy. You're done, you're back, or you're done for 2 to 3 weeks. And you don't know how they're going to heal. And anybody's ever had an ankle injury, you just don't know. Sometimes it's like magic. 3 days later, it's like there's no swelling. I don't feel anything. And then sometimes it's a high ankle sprain, and it might take a month. So we'll know. And they're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell Mississippi State. Injuries in the day of COVID, there is no transparency with numbers or injuries. Everybody is scared to death to tell the other team, I'm out. This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And just like we kind of suspected last week it was defensive backfield issues with COVID, and it was. But they should be over that this week, except they're going to test all week, Phil. Mm-hmm. They're going to test all week. So it might be, we may not see Costello this week. He might have COVID. I mean, he might have been hugged by so many people Saturday night when he got back to Starkville that there is no way he avoided coming down with COVID. I mean, I'm just telling you, that's been the nature of victories early this season, is that the celebrations and everybody wants to touch the quarterback after he does something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And and on a whole other theme here, it seems that Mississippi State adores the attention of feeling like being the belle of the ball. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I think bandwagon videos after one game is a step too far, but it also is Mike Leach. I want to ask about offense here because we just focused on defense. Is Arkansas's offense up to the task of needing to score 40 to 50 points to win a game? Because I still think that's what it's going to take on Saturday.
Yeah, that seems a stretch, doesn't it? I mean, it just seems like that would be a long way to make the jump from last week when you couldn't run the ball and you couldn't sustain anything. And you couldn't stay on the field, much less score that many points. But it may come down to a game where if you can grind it on somebody. They did have a 91-yard drive against Georgia, which was, I think, was far from what I thought could happen. I thought they'd have to get cheap points. The defense has got to score, special teams has got to be a lot better, and the offense has got to keep the ball a little bit for them to win a shootout. That would be now I want to take you back to 2016. This is how far things have fallen. So Arkansas went to Starkville in 2016 and won a shootout, 52-48. That got them to 7-4, and they're going to Missouri the next week. And you thought, hey, they're going to win 8. They're going to go to a bowl game, and they could win 9. If you go back, they should have won both of those games. I mean, they blew big leads at Missouri,
blowing big halftime.
And it hasn't been the same since. Well, the reason why you lost those two games is you couldn't convert short yardage. You did not have an offensive line. They have yet to get over that particular issue. They have not been able to run the ball consistently, and that will be what determines this game. If Arkansas can run it some, everything will clear up. You'll be able to have play action passing. The linebackers will be held. You'll be able to get the ball over the middle to wide receivers because linebackers are going to be in tight. They're not going to drop back like Georgia's did on third down. So run the ball with Cream Boyd. Get this offensive line settled down. Set the edge. I'll be watching the same thing I watched last week. I'll be watching Stromberg, Latham, and Limmer. How do those guys do? They got some stalemates, but they got no movement. Can they get some movement against Mississippi State's front? And they haven't the last 2 years. Mississippi State's defensive line, which was awesome, stuffed them. I don't think they're quite that good with losing Simmons and Sweat and a few others.
Speaking to Clay Henry here on Halftime Club, we've talked a lot about the Mississippi State defensive front and the penetration that they were able to get with against LSU on that LSU offense. Can Arkansas find some success, do you think, running the football? I mean, we've talked, obviously, you're right. Running the football is going to open everything up for that Razorback offense. Do you think they can do it against this Mississippi State defense?
Yeah, you have to go back and you think, well, what did LSU have? They were completely a shell of that offensive line. They lost all 5 guys. and they were great players, almost all seniors, or they went to the NFL early. And they've had COVID issues at LSU. And, sure death in preseason is to have your offensive lineman out because of COVID, not being able to get practice time. Those guys have to have a mesh and have to play assignment error free. You have to can't have a bust up there. And it's what LSU did over and over. But I think, the question is, can they? I don't know. But it's not going to settle down for Franks until they run the ball. And it's not going to settle down until they have other things besides the drop back pass. And I don't know. The offensive line, I think it'll get better week by week. Is this the week it all comes together? I don't know. That's a great question.
I think for me, when you look at the game, and obviously we've talked about slowing down the Mississippi State offense and kind of trying to find the keys for this week's game to try to get a Razorback victory. For me, you're going to have to sustain drives offensively. And to me, I think the two big ones for me, if you win time of possession and you keep that Mississippi State offense on the sidelines, maybe not necessarily go full tilt boogie with the speed of the offense, but just trying to keep possessions rolling, like you said, running the football and making good, solid passes. I think if you can win time of possession this weekend, you're in good shape if you're Arkansas.
Yeah, 3 and outs, they kill your defense for two reasons. One, you didn't get any points. Two, the defense didn't get any rest. And that's what happened in the first quarter. Even though Arkansas was ahead, they had 6 possessions in the first quarter, and that was defense being out there for that long. You just can't have that. And this team they'll score points. I mean, Mississippi State will. They're going to score points. You got to match them somehow. And I don't think this is a good matchup for Arkansas. I did not know how Mississippi State would come out of the chute, but we do now. They came out with all guns blazing, or as Mike Leach would say, all swords swinging.
Yeah, and then he would say something else that you might not even be able to print. Clay, appreciate your time, man. We got to go. Safe travels to Stark Vegas, and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay, you guys hang tough.
Thanks, Clay.
Absolutely. We'll try our best. It's Clay Henry from Hogs Illustrated. Hey, Ouachita Farms has been sponsoring us for a couple of months now. Great state-licensed cannabis farm, processor, seed labeler. They're right there in Hot Springs Village, and they distribute their products over nearly 200 stores across the state. These are CBD products by Ouachita Farms, made right here in Arkansas. Natural, no additives, 100% USA-grown hemp. This is a company owned by the Owens brothers, and it's Ouachita Farms. David Owens has his personal experiences using plant-based products right there on the website. Now, if you're in Central Arkansas, go to Hot Springs Village. Their tasting rooms at Highway 7, 3958 is the address, where you can also go to WashitaFarms.com and use the code WPS15 when you check out. That's Ouachita Farms. Back after the break, wrapping up the first hour.